from Mickey, Aurora, and from me from Castlegory. Well, we have a lot of ground to cover today, and some of it is quite controversial, some of it quite entertaining, and some of it quite pedestrian. So without further ado, I am going to make the bubbies come down, and I am going to plunge right in. So, if I may, I'll start off with the rarely frivolous bit, which is one of many questions, and it's from Jojo. It's on the same subject. Are you going back on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here? To those of you who don't know, I'm a Celebrity is the hugest show in Britain, and I was on it in 2015. I made no pretense about it then, and I make no pretense about it now. I went because I was whoring for goring. I only do things like that for the money to maintain this place, which is a very greedy baby. Needs lots of golden milk. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. The Sun, owned by Rupert Murdoch, incidentally, stated that somebody at ITV, which produces the show, said that they were pretty confident they could get me to go back on their special, which is going to not be the regular I'm a Celebrity show, but is going to be the best of the best. And I think that they might have actually shot themselves slightly in the foot, because all I will say is my people are in touch with their people, or to put it more accurately, their people are in touch with my people, and I have had a conversation with them, and I have made it absolutely sure that they understand that I am not prepared to budge unless they cover me in gold. So let us see what happens. Will they be able to pay enough to tempt me out of these golden rooms? I love this room, incidentally. I think it's such fun. It's the card room, and it has pressed leather wallpaper, painted and embossed in real gold leaf. And the only other place that we are aware of that has the same wallpaper is the Palacio Real in Madrid. So it's very, very precious and valuable, and English heritage loves it. I'm not quite such a lover of it, but I love this room because it took me years to figure out what to do. And finally it spoke to me, and it's dramatic, it's exotic, and maybe ITV will get a hint when they see golden walls for golden girls. Because it's all for goring. Anyway, to plunge right in, we're going to do some Harry and Meghan, and then we're getting on to something really rather much more serious and important than Harry and Meghan, which is the whole business of this. Well, I'll save it till we get to it. Donna Jarvis says, I wonder how William feels about all of this. Very good question. I'm glad you didn't ask how William, the Queen, and Prince Charles feel about it, because that would have been a program in itself. So, to narrow it down to what you have asked, I have a pretty good idea of how Prince William feels, and I'm going to respect his integrity and his sentiments, and I'm going to answer it fulsomely by moving it across to another set of siblings that I'm also familiar with. They're also a very grand family, and their falling out has never been made public. It's known within a narrow circle, but there are so many parallels that I think it would be safer and more respectful, because I'm sure when the siblings hear me speaking, they know exactly who I'm speaking about. But no one else is going to accept a handful of people. Well, if I speak about William and Harry particularly, I have removed the seventh veil, and I would prefer not to do that. Because when one sibling betrays another sibling, it is a living death, literally. Because they do not realize for years, if ever, until the sibling is dead, that the sibling has actually died to them. I know this because this happened with me and my mother. And human beings basically react in very similar ways in certain circumstances. And when my mother tried to burn me on my face when I was 22, I didn't realize it for the next 33 years until she was dead. But it's when she died I realized that she had died to me when she did that. There are some betrayals and some things that people do to other people, whether it's a sibling or a parent or a child, that kills the relationship stone dead. And I know from the experience of the elder sibling in the other circumstance, and now we're now speaking about two sisters, not two brothers, two sisters, where the younger sister, to give the younger sister her due, none of this has ever been made public by either the younger or the elder sister, which would have exaggerated the effects exponentially. Because if you suffer private pain and humiliation and distress and grief, that's one thing. But when you have to endure it in the full glare of the public's attention, it exaggerates everything exponentially. That's been my experience, and it's been the experience of other people who are in the public eye. So I say that for what it's worth. And there are so many parallels between the two brothers and the two sisters that I'll just stick to the two sisters. The younger sister, it turned out, was rabidly envious of the elder sister. But this didn't emerge until they were adults, which is exactly what has happened with William and Harry. Everybody was aware of the fact that there were disparities in the circumstances, but nobody actually thought that the younger sister would turn on the elder sister for no reason at all, except within herself. But she did. And the elder sister took decades to process, because when somebody betrays you that you loved and you thought loved you, and especially if it's a sibling, because when you lose a sibling, you lose whole tranches of your past in a way that you don't if you lose a parent, because siblings share experiences together that parents and children don't share. I know that from my experience of when my brother died, a whole part of my life and my identity was buried with him. This is a loss that even when it's real death, takes decades to come to terms with. And you never really totally get over the loss of a beloved sibling, whether it is through death or through betrayal. But if it is through betrayal, it's a very bitter draught to have to swallow. And yes, you go through self-protectiveness, you go through rage, you go through perplexity, you go through befuddlement, you go through disbelief, you go through the whole gamut of emotions from A to Z. It is an awful, awful experience to have to go through. Whether it is the death of a sibling naturally or the death of a sibling who remains alive, because that, I am assured, is in some ways even more painful and worse, because it takes, even at the moment that you realize that this is a no-hoper, that the relationship is finished, you still hope, and it takes years to realize that the corpse is not alive, it is dead, it's simply sitting up in a chair, and you need to bury it. So there's also, of course, when you're dealing with public figures, as has happened in the case of William and Harry, the added dimension of a public betrayal, which makes everything much worse and makes the crimes, especially the crime of betrayal, the crime of kicking sand in the face of a loved one, the crime of letting down somebody who you should be loving and treating with love, but with whom you behave in an unacceptable and a disdainful and a destructive manner. Very difficult to cope with. William is lucky. He has a solid wife. And William and Catherine are lucky. Catherine was also attacked by Meghan. P.R. Bassett says, Lady C, do you think Harry is up to no good by intending to stay 6 months in the UK and 6 months in the US? Well, I think we need to take anything Harry and Meghan say with a pinch of salt. Every single day, there's some new scenario that's advanced as the latest fact. Fact in their vocabulary seems to be spelled the same as fiction. Do I think he's up to no good if by intending to stay 6 months in the UK and 6 months in the US? Let me put it this way, my dear. If he's going to be spending 6 months of the year here and 6 months of the year there, you can depend on it. It's going to have something to do with tax. And it's going to have something to do with visa status. But remember, Harry was warned by the Queen, you can't be in and out. If he comes here, he is going to be here for 6 months of the year. Yes, he's a private citizen. He can go and glad hand, and he can go and visit people, and he can go and, create situations publicly. He can do all of that, but he cannot do it in an official capacity. He will be a massive nuisance if he tries to do it. Will the press like it? They will love it. They love nothing like a drama and a sensation. They will love the embarrassment and the humiliation and the distress and the newsworthiness of it all. Miriam says, while it is understandable that the royal family has affection for Harry and his family and wanting to keep them within their fold, that does not change the fact that H&M are despised by the British public. This means any potential participation by H&M as royal family members will be quickly rejected by the British people. H&M will be ineffective in any role they may play. Harry is apparently seeking to spend 6 months in the UK and 6 months in the US, probably for visa or tax reasons, absolutely. He better stay out of sight unless he thinks a chorus of boos is the new national anthem. If he doesn't stay out of sight, he will be doing it in a purely private capacity. And yes, he is despised by the British public. Personally, I think what's really interesting, if this latest kite gets flown, let's put it that way, is that we need to remember that the last time Meghan had a long-distance marriage, it ended with her posting back her rings to a totally surprised husband. The question one would have to ask if there were any merit in the plan, and if it would be who came up with it. Is it Harry or is it Megsy baby? Has she decided that she wants to be rid of him and doesn't want him underfoot all the time? Because I know from the Duchess of Windsor's experience that idle, non-working royal princes underfoot are a massive nuisance, especially when, as in the case of the Duchess of Windsor, you don't love the man. Is it Megsy baby's idea? Is it necessity? Because necessity may be the mother of invention, but it's also the mother of mischief. And anybody who is horizontally active, as both Harry and Meghan have been in the past, left to their own devices for 6 months, may discover that there are new attractions beyond the horizon. Let's put it that way. Which could be the beginning of the end. Of course, there are rumors that the marriage is already in trouble. How true those are, I would not care to comment upon, because I am very firmly attached to my possessions and don't wish to be stripped of any of them. However, if it's 6 months here and 6 months there, even in tranches, well, let us see. Because, I mean, if it's for visa and tax reasons, he's only allowed a certain amount of time in the United States before he has big difficulties, but he can do them in increments. So he can get away with bursts, and it's not a 1 6-month period in one place, 1 6-month period in another. It might enliven the marriage. I would imagine that his family would be delighted if he had some other axis upon which to cast his concentration. That maybe her influence, which they regard as destructive, will be lessened, and then gradually he will be free of the claw that binds him firmly to his controller. Kate James says, I believe that Meghan Markle will meet her public reckoning, not at the feet of the British royal family, but at the hands of someone in the Hollywood set or the political arena. As Meghan Markle becomes more emboldened with her lack of accountability, she will eventually come afoul of someone who has the money and power to knock her off her pedestal, someone who doesn't care a fig about her or Harry's family or reputation. I pray it's sooner than later and that it will be very public. Kay James, you're not the only one who's wishing for that, let me tell you. Harry's family have to be measured and have to err on the side of decorum. If Meghan falls foul of people who are as ruthlessly ambitious as she is, she may find the dog-eat-dog. Oh, she also says that I should read this. You know what Benjamin Franklin said about secrets? 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. I don't know what you're referring to, but Mickey, honey, do me a favor. Bring that pillow over there. Marty would like to pad herself a little bit. She's feeling vulnerable and she wants to have a little... Oh, Mickey's just looking at me as if to say, oh, Marty, leave me alone. Don't bother me with your nonsense. And we will tie this up with 2 comments, because the beauty of these interactions is you guys come up with such wonderful comments that I have to share some of them with you. Vicky Chaman says, M and H come across as committing elder abuse to the Queen, and all this during her grieving process. Unbelievable. Thank you, Lady C. You are glowing today. XO. Thank you. I think you obviously meant the last time. Hopefully I'm glowing this time too. Yes, an awful lot of people have commented on the fact that they regard Meghan and Harry's conduct towards the Queen as elder abuse. I am not prepared to argue with them. They are entitled to an opinion, and if it is based upon fact in terms of the actions of Harry and Meghan, who am I to disagree with their opinion as long as they sincerely hold it? Ms. Fish and Chips says, it seems incredible that if the allegations against Markle were of such a serious nature that she's allowed to prance about swinging her hips, well, half the key to her success, darling. Wearing wires and trotting off to the National Service of Thanksgiving and to Oprah, and that age supports her. If it's true, Markle is heartless and has balls too. Well, We all know that Prince Charles called her tungsten. So the vernacular balls of steel doesn't apply in this instance because balls of steel are too soft. Tungsten is far tougher. And Meg's baby has shown in her treatment of her father and her sister, her disabled sister, that when she has no use for someone, they are not accorded even the basic decencies that an adversary of decency would actually endow an enemy with. I think we need to cogitate upon that little point. Karen Chu says, "Good morning, Lady C, Mickey and Aurora. I have 2 questions for you today. I have just read that Meghan is going to write a tell-all book about what happened in Buckingham Palace to set the record straight about the bullying. Surely she knows the palace won't respond. Do you think she will do it, and do you think this will harm her even more? Secondly, I hear that Meghan has applied to the courts to get her half-sister Samantha's case thrown out. Do you know what happened with the case now? Thanking you in advance." Karen Chu, first of all, again, I will caution you from believing anything that Meghan's PR people say. Today, it's her favourite colour is pink. Tomorrow, it's blue. The day after, it's white. The day after, it's tangerine. Wildly inconsistent, and it's just one bit of muck thrown into the face of the public after another. She, I would imagine, is far too well experienced in the law. Remember, she was Rachel Zane. Slap him once, slap him twice, slap him again. But she knows her way around the basic principles of the law well enough to know that if she wrote a book that defamed, which it would, if she accuses her accusers of lying and they have been speaking the truth and she hasn't, that is defamation. Now, her accusers are subject to the Official Secrets Act and therefore have non-disclosure bans upon them. That does not strip them of their right to sue her for defamation if she states that she was innocent, meaning that they lied. They can sue her. Would they sue her? Let me put it this way. One of the women, and notice what I have said, hint, hint, might just be encouraged to do so. This might be the boulder that trips up Megsy baby if she did it. I don't think she's going to be dumb enough to do it. And whatever her failings, she may be tone deaf, she may be egotistical, she may lack insight, but she does have something going on in her brain. As for Samantha's case, I'm going to be very careful now and from here on in as to what I say with regard to Samantha Markle's case. Because I have good reason to believe that anything I say with regard to Samantha and or her father and or her brother is monitored and taken back to Harry and Meghan. in the hope that I will make a slip or two that will be helpful to them. They obviously don't know me well, because believe me, my mouth is like a steel trap. In fact, it's like the mausoleum. It's absolutely stone cold dead unless I want it to come to life. So I'm very careful what I say. And I make that point because if I don't say certain things, it is because I have Samantha's best interests at heart. And I am not prepared, by a slip of the tongue, to give her half-sister any ammunition to use against her. Meghan failed. Meghan lost the case. That part of it, the motion, I should say. She tried to get Samantha's case thrown out and failed ignominiously. Megsy baby has lost on 3 points. Mickey, come on, help Marty. Marty's disconsolate on Megsy baby's behalf. Poor Megsy baby's suffering. The judge is racist. Everybody's racist. I mean, can you believe it? The judge found against Rachel Zane, Megsy baby. How is that possible? Well, it's possible, and it happened. The case continues. Samantha Markle has people at a very high level who are interested in seeing that she achieves justice. I know that to be a fact. And I am saying it because Samantha may not have Meghan's money, but then she doesn't have Meghan's reputation either. It will be interesting to see if that case gets to court, because if it does, it is going to be as sensational as the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, with Samantha Markle cast in the role of Johnny Depp and Meghan Markle cast in the role of Amber Heard. Now, I know things that Meghan and Meghan's people have done to Samantha and her father that are so deplorable that they cannot be repeated. However, in a court of law, they can be repeated. Let's see what happens. But this might be Meghan's reckoning. She might have made the big mistake of thinking her sister, because she is disabled and because she was just her white half-sister, could be trashed. She's going to discover to the contrary. Personality types like Meghan, they don't settle unless they absolutely have to. She is a brazen hussy who has had everything working for her all her life. Let's see if she's going to be able to brazen this one out, or if she's going to have to settle. Keyboard says, as I have mentioned in another comment, the term used by Nelson Piquet, that is neguinho, is not derogatory in Brazil, at least not in Rio de Janeiro. I have lived in Brazil for 45 years and I have an adopted son who is black. The suffix inho, inho, is more often than not a sign of affection, not of size. For instance, a child might call his mother mezinha. Someone might affectionately call their brother irmaniogino. Don't know that I've got that one right. This is another example of woke warriors scraping around for an opportunity to signal racial virtue. If neguinho is unspeakable and derogatory, how come a famous and highly popular singer in Brazil goes by the name of Neguinho de Beija-Flor? Interesting. Interesting, isn't it? Well, this is very dangerous territory because no one likes being accused of something they're not guilty of. And Brazil is a lot like Jamaica. They're very relaxed regarding race and the use of descriptive language. You know, the Anglo-Saxon Puritans have hopped on the racial bandwagon and have turned racism into things that are not really racist at all. In a culture that is so far in advance of American and British culture. And we in Britain are far in advance of racial incorporation than uniformly across the board than in America, which is more patchy. But even in America, and my sisters are American, I have loads of friends who are American. I went partly to school in America. I know American culture quite well. And although America is not as advanced racially as we are, America is very advanced racially compared to what it was. America has had a black president twice. That is not a sign of a culture that is racist. Once, possibly, but twice, sorry. You know, the condemnation of a Brazilian for using a word that is not racist in Brazil feeds the concept very destructively of Anglo-Saxon domination of the Western world and Anglo-Saxon domination of the values and in the Western world and in the world generally, and of devaluing practices by misinterpreting and misunderstanding them and giving pejorative meanings to things that Anglo-Saxons may frown upon, but are doing so unfairly. You know, we as a culture need to be very aware of the fact that we in the Anglo-Saxon world are going through a huge push and pull culturally. There is a massive struggle between true liberals, which I am one of, and the illiberal Neo-Puritans who have hijacked liberalism turned tolerance into intolerance, set themselves up as arbiters of all conduct, thought, motivation, behavior, in a way that really hasn't been done since the Puritans took over England between 1649 and 1660. We in the West, we Anglo-Saxons, we who are a part of Anglo-Saxon culture, whether we are white, brown, black, yellow, pink or green, because Lewis Hamilton is brown. He's not white and he's not black. He's brown. And he's at the center of this. So you need to factor into this equation the fact that somebody like Lewis Hamilton, who is objecting to the use of a term that a Brazilian who is a member of a culture that is far more racially advanced than ours, what gives him the right to do so? The nerve of the man. And what gives our press the right to jump on this situation and to make out that Nelson Piquet has done anything wrong? I mean, this is an appalling muddle. And this just goes to show the dangers of Neo-Puritanism. Because all of us who have worked for and witnessed the tremendous successes that have and advances that have been made in terms of race relations in the last 50 years, we are in danger of being regarded as interfering busybodies by people like the Brazilians, who think, excuse me, what on earth are these people on about? How dare they tell us that we can't use a word that we use? But I'm going to continue this because to me it's really important. Being Jamaican, I understand the nuances in a way that maybe other people who are from less integrated cultures don't understand. Because we in Jamaica were at the forefront of race relations, as indeed was Brazil. And we really don't need people in England and America and Scotland, Ireland and Wales telling us that what we are saying and doing is racist, because they have decided it is. It's an impertinence. Janice and Cheta Prestes says, thank you so much for discussing the stupidity of Lewis Hamilton. Nelson Piquet is one of the best Formula 1 drivers. Hamilton was just good because of his car. Now that Mercedes is not a prime car, he can barely make it to the podium. I'm married to a Brazilian and he said that what Nelson Piquet said isn't racist at all, but common slang. I thought Hamilton considers himself progressive and diverse when he couldn't even respect the differences in customs and nuances of other countries. Because of Hamilton's tantrum, Piquet, a legend, is banned in Formula 1. And there we have it, the injustice, the rank injustice. Lewis Hamilton didn't think, did he, that he doesn't have a right to tell Brazilians what language they should be using, nor does he have a right to disrespect a whole nation, which is precisely what he has done. You know, the ban is proof of what I've just said about Anglo-Saxon culture and why the wokeists and the Neo-Puritans are in danger of tarring all of us with an unacceptable brush. I have to hold partly responsible the mainstream media because they support the disrespect that the Neo-Puritans flaunt, and they do flaunt it, posing as warriors in a battle that other people don't fight or want to fight and don't want their interference into. Thank you very much. They're not saving the world. They're helping to ruin it. This is where respect comes in. Respect for differences within the same culture and differences between cultures. And this is where the press and people, the public, need to be nuanced and to understand that just because we don't like something doesn't mean that other people should be bound to dislike it as well. Just because we don't approve of other standards of behavior doesn't make them wrong. I'm going to use a small example. I'm going to use two small examples about race and the use of certain words in the Jamaican context. The first is that the N-word in Jamaica, which we're not even allowed to repeat as a word, otherwise we are crucified, has always been pejorative. But there is a secondary word that springs from the same roots, that's Jamaican and is particularly Jamaican. And it's similar in sound, but quite different. And it is actually quite an affectionate word. I'm not going to mention either one of them because I'm not prepared to have Neo-Puritans come down on me because of their stupidity. And the second is something that happened with me and Jamaicans in 1999, December 1999. I was having parquet laid by my Jamaican workers at my house on Bourne Street in London. And Rupert Hambro, whose first wife, Charlotte, is now married to the former Lord Chamberlain, Lord Peel, and she was Sir Winston Churchill's granddaughter. And then she and Andrew Parker Bowles became very good friends and dancing partners. Rupert was a neighbour, and he and his then wife, not Charlotte, after Charlotte, had two beautiful terriers, and he used to walk them past my door, and my Jamaicans were doing the work, and the front door was open, and I was actually on the stoop with my then 3 dogs. I must have been taking them out or bringing them in, I don't remember what. But anyway, I was on the stoop with the dogs, and he passed by with his dogs, and of course, yap yap, as one of the workmen inside screamed out the N-word. Now, one of the workers was a very good-looking mixed race guy called Nigel, and his nickname was the N-word, which in Jamaica and in the Jamaican context in certain situations is perfectly acceptable. And I think it is as well in America in terms of rappers, etc. So I say that for what it's worth. Anyway, this voice is screaming out the N-word, and as Rupert is passing by, and he looks at me with a look of absolute horror, as if to say, what on earth do you have happening in your house? My goodness, I can't believe I've heard such a terrible thing ever. Out comes Carlisle, the head builder. And to those of you who have seen the TV show Lady C in the Castle, Carlisle is in it. And of course, he looked at me as if to say, oh, well, I suppose it's okay. So, interesting, no? Interesting. That people could feel that one person can be condemned for saying something that is regarded as unacceptable, but another person is allowed to say it. Well, it shows there are nuances, and where race and culture are concerned, it is incumbent upon not only us as civilized human beings, but the mainstream and other media to respect these nuances and not cram Western neo-puritanical rubbish down other people's throats as if we are the only people who have a right to an opinion or to a custom. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and please keep the questions coming in. Remember, this cannot be done without you. Godspeed, God bless, goodbye.